Well, this is a bit of fun, Jackie, but there'll be no fun here tomorrow.
No, last year, Murray, I prophesied that this first corner would be a problem, and I have to say that again, this year will be the same problem. It's a real bottleneck after the cars have got up to a fairly high speed. So I think it's going to be fairly busy for these drivers. Just let's hope on race day they get through it without any, without any real big trouble.
Well, we were lucky that they did last year, and although one or two just clipped the curb, and it's a long run up to the next turn.
Well, let's go and have a drive round and have a look at the course.
Okay. Right, and look at this. Here we are in the very early morning, and just look at all the medical facilities lined up. They're cleaning the track off for the cars to go out earlier on. Everything is in prime condition.
I love the Australian architecture. You really do know you're in Australia. These metal roofs and that sort of colonial look that we have down here.
And it's nice to see so many of them, but this right-hander amuses me here because this building here is a boys' school. They were at the junior school, Christian Brothers College. They're going to get a super view on race day.
I bet they're not off of school that day.
Here's another one of these lovely houses you were talking about. And look at that, you see. There's some money going to change hands there for those seats and tables.
That looks like the prime spot for lunch.
Now, look, as we go down here, you'll see that they've got shingle down here to stop the cars. And that's actually, I think, where Derek Warwick went off yesterday. We saw him being lifted away in the crane, still inside the car.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. Murray, one of the nicest things for me in Adelaide is to pass the fruit market here. The architecture, the old building, it's so synonymous with Adelaide and Australia. You just couldn't be anywhere else.
Now, I hope they don't ever take that down. And right next to it is the famous, now famous, Stag Hotel.
Well, Murray, we're now just exited, I think, the most important corner on the whole racetrack, because if the driver makes a mess of that, this is the long straight we're going into now. If he loses a few hundred revs, he never catches them up. This is
Decaturville Terrace, which has been renamed Brabham Street. And down at the bottom last year, if you remember, there was the one bump that was really worrying people, and we were actually getting sparks. And typically, the Adelaide people have ironed that out, and it's almost as smooth as a billiard table. And as we come up to the hairpin here, I remember that last year you advised the organisers to move the barriers back to give them a greater runoff. And they have, I think, even increased it more since last year. And this is the tightest corner on the course, together with the racecourse hairpin that leads onto the straight. Yeah. And this of course, is where we turn sort of out of Adelaide in a way and into the racecourse. Now this is the final corner, and then we head down the pit straight. And what sort of speed do you think they'll be doing as they go past our commentary point on the left? Well, I should think they'll be up to around about 150 miles an hour again. Fantastic. And there they are, getting ready for the practice session. There's the Lotus team, the Brabham team, the Benetton team, and there's Alan Jones's lot. Yep. Your tour of the track with Jackie Stewart and Murray Walker.
Driving the Golf Buggyati. David Hill, our executive producer, said you timed that lap with a sundial. Is that right?
Listen, that amount of power, I haven't driven that amount of power for years, for goodness sake.
But a man who has is Johnny Dumfries, your fellow Scot.
Yes, Johnny's doing very well. He's unfortunately going to be out of his Lotus, the JPS Lotus drive for next year, because there's a Japanese driver going to take over, because that team next year is going to have a Honda engine. But Johnny Dumfries took us round earlier on with the camera on board, and that, of course, is always a spectacular thing. Let's have a look at this right now. He's leaving Foster's hairpin right now, and he's accelerating past the pit. This is getting up to about 5th gear here. You can see him changing down and going through this chicane. It's not a big movement of the steering wheel, as you can see, but you've got to keep away from the curbs. Murray earlier on gave you most of the gear changes and speeds. But just let's talk about it right now. This is Wakefield that he's going through now. He's accelerating through these sharp left and right bends there. This is up to Flinders now, and this is Flinders he's going through. You've got to stay off of those curbs. If you get onto the curbs, that's the kind of situation that Nigel Mansell had. The other thing that's different here is the white lines. You've got to be very careful. There, by the way, is the Fruit Market and the Stag Pub on the left-hand side. This is the main straight. This is where a driver gets a few deep breaths in, because you've got to keep the oxygen to the brain. And it's at this time here, after Brewery, that he does allow himself that privilege. Main straight, 320 Ks, into 6th gear. Deep breathing, maybe even relax his neck muscles a little bit. Then heavy braking right down into 1st gear for here. Stay away from the curbs, accelerate out, immediately into 2nd, into 3rd, through the left-hander, into 4th. Through this is very fast indeed. Going through here into 5th gear. This is where Patrick Tambay had his accident yesterday, and Johansson. This is the now getting into the final corner, which is Foss's good opposite lock on. That's to say he's steering into the slide there. Full power he accelerates along with, about 850 to 900 horsepower that he's going to have in the race itself, and about 1200 horsepower when he's going to be qualifying it in not very far from now. So I think you're going to see this kind of performance later again from Johnny de Vries, a Scotsman. His colours always on there. He's got the St Andrews cross on his pit board. Makes the heart weary for Scotland.
Well, Jackie, we've got about 35 minutes to go, and away they'll roar in that vital final qualifying session. We'll bring it to you live right here on Wide World of Sports.
Hello, I'm Senna from Brazil. You stay with the Wide World of Sports for the 86 Australian Formula 1 Grand Prix.
I don't believe in bad luck. I think it's due to poor preparation. That could never be claimed of this team in the relationship to qualifying. It's excellent preparation, masterminded by two men that have allowed Ayrton Senna to have 8 pole positions this year alone. Those two men, Peter Warr and Gerhard Berger, one a team manager, the other an engineer. And this is the equipment that allows Ayrton Senna to get those pole positions. You see these 2 gearboxes there? They look identical. Wrong. The one on the left, that's a race gearbox. That'll do all 80 laps. The one on the right is only capable of doing 4 fast laps. 2 engines behind me. Look identical. There's parts missing from this one, but they look identical. Wrong. The one on the left is the race engine. It's going to do the full 80 laps. The one on the right is a 4-lap special. It produces about 1200 horsepower. This one over here produces around 850 to 900 horsepower in the race. Then there are tyres. 2 identical tyres. Wrong again. The one on the left, that's the race tyre. It'll do more laps. This one here has a sticky compound. It only is good probably for a lap and a half to 2 laps of real hard driving by Ayrton Senna. But the real secret of qualifying is in this here. The 2 turbos. The one on the left is set up to do the whole distance at race boost. This little baby here is set up for those magic 4 laps. It's going to make that Renault engine produce that 1200 horsepower, and frankly, it's going to burn out after only 4 laps. So turbo technology is really what it's all about.
And just listen to that noise from a very noisy Lotus garage. Jackie Stewart reporting again. We'll be back in a moment for this vital final qualifying session for tomorrow's Australian Formula 1 Grand Prix.
My name is Michele Alboreto. Stay watching the Adelaide Grand Prix.
It's a vital final qualifying session down there in pit lane, where they come out as though they're catapulted from a giant Shanghai. Ken Sparks and Vern Schuppen.
Thank you very much, Mike. Well, the adrenaline is really pumping down here on pit row, and of course we now go to the vital timing. Vern, what will the drivers be looking for?
Well, of course, looking for the fastest time they possibly can. As each car crosses the start-finish line, it breaks an electronic beam, which sends a signal back to the computer in the timing tower. And also, each individual pit, each driver has his own monitor to watch. So basically, they're just going out to go as hard as they can and be as near to the front of the grid as they can for tomorrow.
Of course, Mansell was first out. He's keen, isn't he?
Yeah, well, of course, he's the one that's got the most on the line, so he's got a lot to do.
Right, back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Ken. Well, as you watch Nigel Mansell, who is holding pole position at the moment from yesterday's session, circling the track and first out, this is the most important 60-minute final qualification session of the 1986 Grand Prix season, because three men, Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet, are in contention for this year's World Championship, and a front row's position on the starting grid for tomorrow's last round of the championship here in Adelaide is vital for all three of them. And the track is in absolutely prime condition, because with the sun shining on it all day long, it is warming up, the tyres are getting hot, and for enthusiasts who are watching, the significant news is that all the top runners have got one set of C race tyres and one set of E qualification tyres. Now that means to say that Nigel Mansell can probably go the whole race distance on the set of tyres that he's using at the moment if he wanted to. He won't, of course. He'll be getting the car absolutely au point for this Adelaide circuit. Then he'll put on the E's, probably towards the end of the session, and go for it, as will all the others.
Yes, when they put on the E's, they've got 1 or 2 laps before the very, very soft, sticky compound overheats, but they hope to get a good time. It becomes a very tactical battle then. Timing is very important because they must get a clear run. If they're on a fast lap and they come on a slower car, they've ruined the tyres already and they don't get a second chance. So there is Mansell. He's warming up his C's. He'll be able to go pretty quickly on those. He'll want to establish a good time. He'll try and improve his yesterday's time on these C tyres, which, as Murray says, will last him as long as he wants, really. And then when he's done that and done a few laps, he'll go in and he will wait in the pits and he will try and time it when the track isn't too busy. You see him sliding about quite a lot. The tyres aren't yet hot. They'll take a while to come in. And then down the long straight, they build up. Here they build up to some 200 miles an hour. Mansell, he was weaving about. That's to try and get a little bit more heat into the tyres to warm them up. He'll probably take the second lap quite slowly as well, and then on his third lap he'll start really going for a time.
Nigel Mansell's fastest time yesterday, which gave him provisional pole position on the starting grid, was 1 minute and 19.255 seconds. But significantly, Alain Prost in the non-qualifying session this morning went round fastest of all time at Adelaide, 1 minute 19.121 seconds, which is some 4 seconds inside Keke Rosberg's 1985 lap record, and faster than Ayrton Senna's pole position time last year. Well, you now watch Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, in the tremendously powerful 1350 horsepower in qualifying trim BMW-powered Benetton. That is the man who won the Mexican Grand Prix. Now let's go round the lap with him. He goes from here, the start and finish point, into the S's in second gear. Then he goes round what I call Gumtree Bend for obvious reasons, down to Wakefield Turn, second gear at about 110 k's. Now into East Terrace Bend, second gear still, 110 k's, and Berger really looks as though he's pressing on. He, unlike all the other drivers I've mentioned, is using Pirelli tyres and may well be going for a fast time right from the beginning. Flinders Bend, the right-hander. Now he comes up towards Market's Turn, which is a second gear, 110 miles an hour, 110 k's an hour turn, up to Stag Turn by the famous pub of that name. Now down towards Brewery Bend. He's doing about 150 kilometers an hour. Swings round, well, he's speeding up, but he is not on a qualification lap at the present moment. He was 2 seconds faster on his last lap than he had been yesterday, and it's actually put him up into 5th position on the grid as you look at the cool, calm and methodical Ayrton Senna sitting in his car. Now, Senna has got an enormous number of pole positions to his credit already in his short career. 15 times he's been in pole position. He's waiting to go out in his Lotus Renault on his Goodyear tyres. The Lotus pit crew getting him all ready. He's got one of the very latest Renault qualification engines behind him, which produce well over 1,200 horsepower. Now Berger's going for it. Watch him. The target time for pole position at the present moment is that of Nigel Mansell, 1 minute 19.255 seconds.
Yeah, Berger is definitely on a quick one now. He's already improved his time dramatically, making himself up into 5th place with a 1:20.5. Qualifying form, the BMW engine he's got behind him is probably the most powerful. See a little bit of fluid just spilling out of the breather there. Hard on the brakes at the last hairpin and then on to full power down the pit straight. And that was just a little bit slower than his first lap this afternoon. We saw Ayrton Senna just now sitting in the pits. He would be waiting for the initial rush of traffic to die away. It's so important in this qualifying to get a clear lap. And the trick is to try and get out there when most of the other people have done their run and come in again.
Down in the pit lane, the Goodyear and the Pirelli tyre technicians, there incidentally is Alan Jones in the cap and the jacket, are testing the temperature of the tyres as they come in and the drivers stop. They stick a probe right across 3 points of the compound of the front and rear tyres, measure the temperatures. That there is Stefan Johansson, the Swedish driver for Ferrari, who is about to drive for his last time for Ferrari in 1986 on Sunday, because he has been, in the opinion of many people, wrongfully dismissed by Ferrari to make room for Gerhard Berger. There's Ingegneri Tomeni just walking out of the picture. That's the man who's responsible for setting up Johansson's car. And the Swede crashed very badly yesterday in practice. I thought he'd broken his leg when he hopped away from the car, but he turned out merely to have bruised it, although his rib cage is very, very sore, he told me this morning. Now, the mercurial 15 pole positions, Ayrton Senna in the Lotus, arguably the fastest man of all on the Grand Prix circuits, certainly in qualifying trim. So we'll be back. Nigel Mansell in pole position yesterday is still there, and he's gone around faster than he did yesterday afternoon. You're now watching one of his main challengers for the World Championship and the race, his teammate Nelson Piquet in the Williams Honda. Now, at the present moment, Piquet is down to 4th position because René Arnoux, the little Frenchman who went so well in the non-qualifying session this morning, has moved him out and gone up to 3rd position. So 1 minute 20.133 is not fast enough for Piquet to improve.
And an absolutely electrifying lap by Nigel Mansell puts him over a second clear of his rivals, and that is really a target to shoot at. Alain Prost went quicker than the 19.785 that you see captioned. He went quicker than that this morning, and that is one of the Benettons parked in the sand. It was Berger who's pulled off the road, so he'll be rushing back to get in the spare car as we watch Nelson Piquet. Nelson is on a quick lap. He's so far done a 20.1 this morning as we look at Keke Rosberg sitting in his car. And here's Piquet. He's got a problem, he's got traffic in the way. That won't help us that time. He had to take the inside line. He wasn't on the perfect line for that corner. That would cost him 2 or 3/10 of a second at least. And he's still pressing on with the lap. On full power past the start-finish line. And that was not a quick one. He's too held up. Now Piquet on a quick one. He looks to have a fairly clear road in front of him. But one slow car, that was keeping well out of his way, so Piquet on a clear lap.
Going for Nigel Mansell's incredible time of 1 minute 18.403. compared with the pole position time last year of Ayrton Senna, 1 minute 19.8. So Nigel Mansell is already nearly 1.5 seconds inside last year's pole position time. When this practice session began, we had that dream of the top 3 men in the championship in the top 3 places on the grid. It's still Mansell leading, but now Senna has gone up to second position on the grid with a time of 1:19.6, and as Piquet is coming up towards the completion of his lap, going for 1:18.4, the order is Mansell, Senna, Prost. 1:18.4 is what Piquet's after. And he is 1.2 seconds outside that electrifyingly fast lap of Nigel Mansell's. I remind you again that all the top men at the present moment, including Piquet that you have just seen, Senna that you've just seen, and Alain Prost there, are starting their practicing on C compound full race tyres, which are not as fast as the E compound qualifiers, which they can and will be using later on in this session. So if we have got 1:18.4, I should think we're going to see a considerable improvement on that later.
Yes, but that will do a tremendous amount for Nigel Mansell's confidence. Obviously he's under some pressure here, and that must surely relax him up a lot to have posted such a good time so early on. Alain Prost has come out earlier than he usually does. He normally waits for a good 15 minutes into the session waiting for traffic, but he's been ousted from the second place he had yesterday. He's now down to 4th because Senna and Piquet have just ousted him, and Prost is already going for it.
And there is Nigel Mansell sitting coolly in his car, looking at the lap times monitor temporarily positioned in front of him, with the knowledge that he is 1.2 seconds faster than Ayrton Senna, who is the nearest man to him. A quite incredible performance. Alain Prost, as James said, out much earlier than usual, going for it. 1:18.4 the target. His fastest time yesterday, 1:19.8. Into the last turn. And that is an indication of how incredibly quick Nigel Mansell was going earlier on today. And that is Patrick Tambay's car stuck in the middle of the circuit there. And that's the reason why. A complete 360-degree spin for Patrick Tambay. The Lola Haas Ford team is in bad shape today because Alan Jones blew a turbo this morning.
Yes, and Tombo stalled the engine, but we got him going again. He would have required a push start. There he is, back circulating. Stephanie Hansen sitting in his Ferrari. You see he's watching the monitor of the times as they come up to see what he's got to do, and that also is a very important part of timing. There is Mansell sitting in his car, and he must be feeling very contented at the moment. He's set a time that is really going to be hard to catch.
René Arnoux, the Frenchman, in the French Ligier with its Renault engine behind him, went extremely well this morning and is in 5th place at the moment. As you look at Ayrton Senna in the Lotus Renault, the order, and we are now into the 20th minute of this 60-minute session, with every indication that, unlike yesterday, we will go to the full 60-minute period because the weather is looking excellent. It's Mansell number 1, Senna number 2, Piquet number 3, Prost number 4, Arnoux number 5, and Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, in 6th position. And Ayrton Senna on, I suspect, still the C compound race tyres, chasing Nigel Mansell's incredible fastest lap so far, 1:18.4. .1 seconds off is a very, very long time in Grand Prix racing qualifying terms.
Yeah, but it looks as if so far Lotus not having problems with their under tray. It seems to be attached. And that, of course, would not make the car as quick as it might be later.
Yes, Senna has taken a lot of stick from the insiders in Grand Prix racing because they have accused the Lotus team of attaching the undertray of the car so loosely to it that it gets very close to the ground and helps the downforce. A charge which is very indignantly denied by Peter Waugh, the team manager, and Ayrton Senna, the driver, as you might expect. That's Keke Rosberg, world champion of 1982, the man who won here at Adelaide last year for the first ever World Championship Australian Grand Prix, then in a Williams Honda, here in a McLaren Tag. And at the moment he is down in 8th position. He finished 5th yesterday, so he slipped 3 places. And all the top men have improved their times. Mansell is faster than yesterday, as are Senna, Piquet, Prost, Arnoux, Berger and Alliot. But in 8th position, Keke Rosberg, that you look at now, is at the moment slower than yesterday. His time then was 1:21.29. And that's really irrelevant because his target is that of Nigel Mansell, the pole position holder. Keke Rosberg getting ready for his last Grand Prix drive because he has announced his retirement and intends to go from being a driver to a promoter in 1987. As Keke Rosberg approaches the end of the lap, Nigel Mansell is going out again. It is now the 22nd minute. I suspect that Mansell is still on his C race tyres. They'll be leaving the fitting of the qualification tyres to the very last moment, commensurate with there not being a lot of traffic on the circuit that would slow them down. 1:18.4 is Rosberg's target.
I just have a sneaking suspicion that Mansell and his Williams team might have done a clever flanker and sent him out on qualifiers on the E compound tyres straight away to post that time, because the others seem to be having that much of a problem getting anywhere near it at all. And an 18.9 for Ayrton Senna. So Ayrton Senna in 2nd place, he improves his time, but he's still half a second away from Nigel Mansell. But I think maybe Mansell has already used his qualifiers. He can also make a combination of the two. He can use on the right-hand side of the car, the tyres do less work, so the qualifiers from that side could move to the left-hand side of the car, and a set of C's go onto the right of it. They have two sets, but they can juggle the individual tyres around.
36 minutes to go of this vital qualification session. Join us again soon.
Well, we've done 26 minutes now of the Formula One final hour of this Australian Grand Prix build-up, and there you see the fastest time so far. Nigel Mansell still on the pole. Second fastest now is Ayrton Senna. Third fastest Nelson Piquet. Then comes the reigning world champion Alain Prost. Fifth fastest right now is René Arnoux, the young Frenchman. And then comes Berger, the man who won in Mexico. Back for more live coverage of this to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Such is the speed of this searingly fast qualifying session, with Ayrton Senna sitting there in the pit, that the first four men, Mansell, Senna, Piquet and Prost, are all inside Ayrton Senna. There he is, last year pole position. So that's an indication of how quickly the cars are going in 1986.
Senna, you've just seen his pit. And believe me, he'll be waiting probably right to the last 5 minutes of qualifying, working on the thesis as we watch Nigel Mansell, who's out there probably just keeping an eye on things, defending his pole position. I don't suppose for the moment that he's trying to improve the time. But Ayrton Senna does specialise in the last 5 minute run, and that's quite sensible here because this track is getting more and more rubber down on it all the time, and that tends to make the track quicker and grippier. Well, Mansell is certainly on a quick one. And tidy now. Mansell brimming with confidence. Circuit, knocking up to 200 miles an hour, then hard on the brakes, down through the gearbox, short squirt through the twisty little bits. Rosberg in front of him, he's just warming up tyres, but he for sure will have seen Mansell coming and will give him the space he needs. And that certainly wasn't a quick one. He's built up the speed, flash of sparks as the car bottoms, the stadium skid plates protecting the underneath of the car as they run it as low as possible, get as much downforce.
As I look at my computerized readout in front of me and I see that Nigel Mansell is currently in pole position and Ayrton Senna, I am reminded of Adelaide 1986 when it was 85 when it was the other way round. Senna in pole and Mansell second, and the fact that Mansell went off in the very opening lap as a result of a coming together with Senna, for which Mansell does not blame the Brazilian at all. And Mansell's in a very commanding position now. You're actually looking at Nelson Piquet, who is third fastest, the order being Mansell, Senna, Piquet, exactly halfway through this qualifying session. We are now into the 31st minute, and Alan Jones has just gone round in 1:22.8. He's in the background at the present moment. There he is on behind Nelson Piquet. But he's well down. He's only in 14th position, Alan Jones, although he has improved the time that he put up yesterday. So Nelson Piquet now you're looking at. He has 20 pole positions in his very distinguished career, going for 21. And wouldn't that be nice for him if he did, because it would put him in the psychological plus position ahead of everybody else. And that's what is going to be needed at Adelaide as you watch Alan Jones, who blew a turbo this morning from his Ford engine. Neither of the two Ferraris, incidentally, have improved on yesterday's time. Michele Alboreto is in 9th position and Stefan Johansson in 11th place. Philippe Alliot, who is 8th, has not improved. And with Alan Jones building up to go for a quick one, the order remains in the 32nd minute. Nigel Mansell, pole position. Senna, 2nd. Piquet, 3rd. Both the Williams Hondas in the top 3. Prost in 4th position, and he needs to improve if he's to keep his World Championship hopes alive at the start of the Australian Grand Prix. Arnoux 5th, Gerhard Berger 6th.
It's interesting to see that Alan Jones clearly started that as a quick lap. For some reason he was unhappy with it, and so what he has to do is to slow right down to cool the tyres down. When you commit to a quick lap, you can't do too much on these tyres. They don't last very long, and so you've got to either go for it or keep them cool. He started quickly, saw that he wasn't happy. Now he's slowing it down, and he'll build up his speed at the end of the lap. For the last corner, he'll take that as hard as he can to get a good slingshot across the start-finish line. And no, he's decided to come in. So Jones into the pits. There's Ayrton Senna looking fixedly at the screen with the readout of the lap times, waiting to time his final attempt.
The man talking to him is Steve Hallam, who is his race engineer. Between them, these two, as in every other team, have to be jointly responsible for setting up the car. Senna, of course, has the experience from driving it, and he will translate that to Steve Hallam, who, in consultation with his driver, will ensure that the car is modified as necessary to give it the maximum speed on the circuit. This is Stefan Johansson, Ferrari. Going well in spite of the bad knock that he had in practice yesterday. He's at East Terrace Bend now. Let's follow him round towards Flinders and on towards Market's Turn. And Patrick Tambay has done it all wrong. He did it all wrong yesterday when he went off with a colossal thump. And here he is, losing traction, hitting the tyres, doing the car no good at all. He hit it sideways on, and it doesn't look as though he's damaged anything. But they will want to check the suspension linkage very carefully when he comes into the pits.
He's really having a pretty unhappy weekend, Tom Babe. He's spent probably as much time off the track as he's spent on it so far. Here we see it again. He goes wide, gets onto the slippery stuff, doesn't make the turn in, and boom, sideways into the tyre barrier, which catches the car very well, and it looks pretty much undamaged. You'd have to go in. Maybe I think I saw a wishbone bent on the front suspension. Yeah, got a bit of a kink there, but he'll go and check it all over. That should be easy to repair, or else he can take the spare car out.
And as Tambay drives in to get his car looked at in the 35th minute in this 60-minute qualifying session, the last of the meeting, Nelson Piquet has moved up into second place, 0.3 of a second behind his teammate Nigel Mansell. There is the order. The two Williams Hondas on the front row of the grid. Mansell in pole position, the World Championship leader. Nelson Piquet second. Senna third. Prost fourth. Arnoux fifth. Gerhard Berger sixth. And we will be back.
This is Channel 9's Wide World of Sports, the continuing coverage of the Foster's Australian Grand Prix, the final hour of practice. Fastest is still Nigel Mansell, second fastest is Nelson Piquet, third is Ayrton Senna, fourth Alain Prost. 5th, René Arnoux, and 6th up into that leaderboard is Ligier. 37 minutes completed so far of this 1 hour, the final hour. Back to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Back for the final session of this FIA World Championship preparation session here. And there is Derek Warwick, who again had trouble this morning. He was craned off the circuit yesterday. He had trouble with his tremendously fast but unwieldy and ungainly Brabham BMW this morning. The Englishman not terribly happy. He is using Pirelli tyres, unlike most of the others who are using Goodyear tyres. But the Pirellis went extremely well in the Australian Grand Prix last year. And now, with this 60-minute session in its 38th minute, and Philippe Streff in the wall, the order is Mansell, Piquet, Senna, Prost, Arnoux, Berger. Those are the top 6. And Nigel Mansell is proving so wrong those people who didn't think he'd got what it takes. 5 wins this year, leading the World Championship, still in pole position, and 0.3 of a second ahead of Nelson Piquet, his teammate. I don't think there is going to be any problem over the positioning of Streff's car. Sometimes the practice has to be stopped if the car is adjudged to be in a dangerous position. But Streff got it tucked up against the wall. We'll probably see where it is soon in relation to Michele Alboreto, the Ferrari team leader. Very unhappy man this season because the Ferrari has handled so badly that the Ferrari team have appointed a new designer for 1987. No less a man than John Barnard, who designed the tremendously successful McLarens. Alboreto is still in a position of not being able to improve his yesterday's time, as is his teammate Stefan Johansson. So the Ferrari's in bad shape.
Yes, that's what happens, or tends to happen, when you've got an unwieldy chassis. They've been fiddling with the car. The circuit is clearly quicker today. Everybody else is improving their times, and yet the Ferrari engineers are juggling about to try and get their car right, and they're probably groping in the dark a bit, and it would appear that they've gone the wrong way in their settings.
Michele Alboreto into the pits. There you see the electric blanket, which is on the tyre of the Williams there, of Nelson Piquet's car. And nowadays all the top teams use them for every tyre on the car. It's Nigel Mansell in the background there. And the object of the exercise is to get the tyres heated up to race operating temperature or practice operating temperature, so that as soon as the driver goes out onto the circuit, he doesn't have to do a warm-up lap, he can go for it. Well, they're usually not quite up to operating temperature, but not very far off it. That's Frank Durney, who is the race engineer there of Nelson Piquet, checking the temperature of the tyre. Frank Durney engineers Nelson Piquet's car. Patrick Head, the designer, engineers Nigel Mansell's car. We've got an oil flag out actually now at the S's. That means to say that somebody has dropped some oil. We think it must be Philippe Streff, who we saw having parked his Tyrrell Renault alongside the wall. There's the yellow flag being waved to indicate caution, so this could well affect all times and means that Nigel Mansell may well stay where he is.
That's right. That would be good news for Mansell. He'd be not at all unhappy to see that. And there's the Brabham of Riccardo Patrese, clearly on a quick one. You can see all the black smoke. That's unburnt fuel coming out of the engine. They throw extra fuel in to cool the pistons when they're up on full boost. And he has in fact decided he doesn't want to do a quick one and has slowed it right down again. But that would underline the oil flag and the whatever it is on the track, probably come from Streff's parked car as he blew his engine. Underlines the wisdom of Mansell in going for a quick one very early on. And it really is the most dramatic improvement we've ever seen in a driver in Mansell's case. There's Johnny Dumfries just going out of the pits. He's on a new set of tyres. You can see the labels still stuck to the treads. And that, I think, would be his set of E-compound qualifiers. So this is a vital moment for Dumfries. The trouble with qualifiers, you've got to collect up your quick lap. You only get one shot at it.
I can hardly believe my lucky eyes, because I now actually see a heat haze coming off the Adelaide circuit surface. That means to say that things really are in super condition in comparison with the previous days we've had here and yesterday's qualifying session, because here it is, you see, what a lovely sight that is. The rippling lines across the screen, that is hot air. That means to say that the track surface is good and warm. That means to say that the tyre compounds will be good and hot. And that means to say that Nelson Piquet in the background there on what I suspect to be the final warm-up lap before he goes for a really quick time on E-compound tyres, although it may just be a bit early. We've still got 17 minutes of this session to go. We'll soon see as Johnny Dumfries, Scottish driver in the Lotus Renault, tours gently around. In fact, he's going incredibly slowly. He's not going at warm-up speed. There's the man. That is the world champion Alain Prost, who is down in 4th position. Now he's running true to form. He came out early in the opening stages of this qualifying session, earlier than we're used to seeing him. Now he's coming out, and I think we can see something, expect to see something pretty sensational.
Well, no, I think he's going to save it, Murray. I suspect he looks as if he's on a used set of tyres there, so I suspect he's on his original C set, and I would think that he's going to go out and have a look at the track to check out just how slippery this oil patch is that we surmise has been put down by Streff's car as he blew up. So I suspect that this is a recce from Prost. He's got plenty of time to come back in and put his qualifiers on, but he wants to see the track for himself because he does not want to waste those qualifiers. As I said before, you've only really got one lap on them, so you don't want to put them on at the wrong moment. You want to make sure that everything is right. So Prost wrecking the track.
Don't go away, because this last 15 minutes of qualifying for the grid positions for the start of the Australian Grand Prix on Sunday should be electrifying. We have Nigel Mansell in pole position as he was yesterday when the qualifying session finished. 1:18.4 his time, which is 1.4 seconds faster than Senna's last year, and that's an average speed of 173.5 k's around this circuit. In 2nd position, Nelson Piquet, just 0.3 of a second slower. 3rd, Ayrton Senna. 4th, the man you are looking at this moment, world champion Alain Prost in the McLaren tag. The tag engine, which is Porsche designed and built to the specification of ex-McLaren designer John Barnard, is quite famous for the fact that it does not accept as much qualifying boost as the Hondas and the BMWs and the Renaults, but there's been big improvements recently. They've worked on it, and now the tag engine will take more boost, which means that Prost can really go for a very high position on the starting grid, which he certainly needs in his position of 2nd in the World Championship, 6 points behind Mansell with 1 race to go.
And this qualifying now becomes really vital for the championship contenders, because on the street circuit, as this is in Adelaide, overtaking is very difficult. So you need to start at the front of the grid. And Mansell, in his quest to hold on to his World Championship lead, has really set the cat amongst the pigeons. He did a 1:18.4 very early in the session, which was very nearly a second and a half quicker than anybody else. And he set a target that he has been in the comfortable position of being able to sit back and relax and watch the others shoot at, and so far nobody has really got near it. But have a strong feeling that both Senna and Prost and possibly Piquet still have their really sticky qualifying tyres up their sleeves, and they're waiting till the last minutes of this session when they hope that the track, by getting more and more rubber on it, will be offering more and more grip, and they are saving their challenge right till the end.
Only 10 minutes to go in this final hour for the fastest Australian Grand Prix qualifying, the final hour. The fastest times as follows. Fastest still, Nigel Mansell, leader at the World Championship. Second, his own teammate, Nelson Piquet from Brazil. Third from Brazil also, Ayrton Senna, the man that you still got to look for. He could put a quick one in the final minute. Then Alain Prost is fourth fastest in his Marlboro McLaren. Fifth fastest is still René Arnoux, the little Frenchman. And sixth, the man who won the Grand Prix of Mexico, that is Gerhard Berger. He's stolen into the top six. With less than 10 minutes to go, let's go back to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
And you look at René Arnoux, the Frenchman, in his Ligier Renault, as Ayrton Senna gets ready to go out on the track, this time surely on the E-Compound qualifiers. Nigel Mansell holding pole position, 1 minute 18.4, the fastest ever at Adelaide. Alain Prost sitting there in the pits. It is all getting very exciting indeed.
Yes. See the shots of the drivers there just getting into their cars. We've had very little change in the times for the last 20 minutes or so, but it's these final minutes now that the big push will come. They have 2 sets of tyres each, that's all they're allowed for this session. All the teams have chosen one soft race type compound tyre and a super soft qualifying tyre, and most of them will have saved their super soft qualifying tyres now for the last 5 or 10 minutes of the session. 8 minutes to go.
I wonder if the super soft tyres are going to compensate for the fact that there is definitely oil on the track from, I suspect, Philippe Streff's broken Tyrrell Renault, which must be slowing things up a bit. We've been looking at the times consistently, and we think now that that is Nigel Mansell certainly on his qualifiers. Now, I have a system of operating at Grand Prix, and I always, when the last session begins, write down the people who have occupied the pole position since the session began. Only one name appears on that list today, and there he is. Nigel Mansell started in pole position from yesterday's qualifying session, went round quicker today than he did yesterday. In fact, 0.8 of a second quicker, and that is much quicker. Now he looks as though he is on his final set of E-Compound, the softest of all qualifying tyres, aiming to improve on what is already a sensational time. Ahead of his teammate Nelson Piquet, second. Ayrton Senna getting ready to go out, third. Prost getting ready to go out again, fourth. René Arnoux, fifth. Berger, sixth. Rosberg in the second McLaren is seventh. Philippe Alliot is eighth.
There's Nelson Piquet, also on his final set of tyres. So we go back to Mansell as he goes round. They were just taking off the heating blankets from the tyres. But bear in mind that Alain Prost, for instance, has not yet equalled the time that he did this morning in the untimed session, and doesn't appear to be too concerned, so he's saving his qualifiers for the last possible moment, as is Ayrton Senna. But they're all just getting ready to come out now. Piquet has just left the pits. Mansell still warming his tyres up. He'll be taking it quite carefully. He doesn't want to overheat them or waste them. It's absolutely vital to have put exactly the right amount of work into the tyres, not too hot, but warmed up to the right temperature as you start your flying lap. It's a one-shot business. You've got one really good lap at it before the tyres lose performance. It's vital to get it right. He also has to look for space on the track. He wants a good gap in front of him so that he doesn't come on any slower cars. And the tyres are just beginning to look ready. Once he's got rid of the labels, then you can reasonably reckon that the tyres are just coming up to their best possible moment. Now he'll want to stay in front of the Brabham, and there goes Ayrton Senna. Senna on his E qualifiers, So this is it. This is the one shot for Senna. We'll try and have a look underneath the car to see if his undertrays developed a fault and got bendy again.
Nigel Mansell's coming up towards Foster's hairpin, which is the last turn, and then that will be to start, I believe, his quick lap. The labels seem to be virtually off the tyres. Over the line he goes now, and he's travelling into the chicane. Left. You see the yellow flag is still waving in the background, and Nigel is taking it very steadily indeed. So he has decided to abort that lap.
Absolutely. As soon as he saw the yellow flag, he wisely decided to abort the lap. He didn't know what it was going to be. But it's vital to protect those tyres. Just over 4 minutes to go. There is Ayrton Senna building up also.
Still Mansell, Piquet, Senna, Prost, Arnoux, Berger, and the oil flags and the yellow flags, I won't say may have saved Mansell, because he looked invulnerable. 1:18.4 is sensationally fast. He has resisted the pressure which has been increasing on him ever since he took the World Championship lead by winning superbly the British Grand Prix at Brands Hatch this year. And it looks to me as though he is going into the start of the Australian Grand Prix, the last and most important round of the year for him, in the best place of all, pole position on the starting grid, but not if Ayrton Senna can do anything about it, because look at this, the Brazilian is really going for it. Oil or no oil, there's the sparks. He's got the minimum height on the car, the downforce is at its maximum, and Ayrton Senna, who is famous for his electrifying laps in the very closing stages of practice, with now 3 minutes to go, is on his way to try and take that pole position from Nigel Mansell, as he did last year. His target is 1 minute 18.4 seconds. Through the heat haze, there's a yellow flag at racetrack hairpin, which he's approaching as he comes down the Brabham Straight at some 320 kilometres an hour, taking Alain Prost. He's had to go offline, and he's slowed right down. And you saw a smoking car on the right there. I couldn't identify it. Well, there's the Tyrrell of Streff, and it's one of the Zach speeds. It's Hub Rotengatter. Well, that has really blown it, I think, for Ayrton Senna, because if, as I suspect, he's on his ease, he must be, it means that he's now got just about 2 minutes. It's not a question of time, because you can actually start your fastest lap literally seconds before the end of the practice session, and as long as you get across the line before the checkered flag appears, you are okay. But with some 1 minute 50 seconds now before the end of the session, and with the Zach speed and the Tyrrell of respectively Rotengatter and Streff parked by the circuit, Mansell is going very quickly indeed. He's got no need to in terms of protecting his pole position. Piquet has just started a lap. And there's Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham BMW.
And that is Nelson Piquet. And Nelson is committed so far to a quick lap. Patrese makes room for him. He's got one more car in front of him. And this looks to me like the do-or-die effort from Nelson Piquet. You see how the rear end snapped out of line then. He just held it with a bit of opposite lock. Piquet was very quick there on the corner onto the straight. Vital to be quick through that one, because that carries your momentum all the way down the straight. There's still a held yellow and an oil flag there, but Piquet's already seen that. He knows what's there. Mansell is in front of him. Moves out of the way. Piquet goes through on his committed lap. Nelson Piquet over the start-finish line and did not improve. But he's going for another quick lap. Alboreto makes room, leaves Piquet the racing line, and there is the checkered flag. But Piquet, remember, can finish this lap and it will still count.
The athletic Glenn Dix leaps out onto the track, waves his checkered flag as only he can, and already Nelson Piquet is on a very quick lap indeed. No one can accuse Nigel Mansell of having balked him on the previous lap. I've never seen anybody get out of the way as quickly as he did. He fairly shot to the side of the circuit to clear it for his teammate. So, Nigel Mansell still in pole position. The practice session is officially finishing now with the checkered flag out. Nelson Piquet could just in the dying seconds not get pole position, I think, because he slowed right down. Something has happened inside the office that Jackie Stewart was telling us about earlier on, and so there is the man who has preserved his pole position from yesterday. This is the 4th pole position of Nigel Mansell's long career now, and certainly the most important that he has ever put up, and probably the most important he ever will put up, because it may well have put him in line for his first ever World Championship. So at the end of this second 60-minute qualifying session, Nigel Mansell takes pole position. His teammate Nelson Piquet in the second Williams Honda is second. Ayrton Senna, who had pole position last year, is in 3rd place in the Lotus Renault. Alain Prost is 4th, and that means to say that the 3 World Championship contenders, Mansell, Piquet and Prost, are all in the top 4, and that is from where they need to be from their point of view. And a happy Mansell exits the Williams Honda confident for Sunday. Into the garage, he can be very, very well pleased with his day's work.
Yes, a really marvellous effort by Mansell. It really underlines his claim to the World Championship. He set an unreachable target very early in the session, went straight out, decided to commit himself to his all-out effort right at the beginning of the session, which I think really jumped his rivals a little bit. Basically, nobody really threatened him throughout the session. Marvellous effort, and absolutely vital for him to start the race from pole position. From there, he can afford to be defensive. Remember, he only needs to finish in the first 3 to be certain of winning the World Championship. And starting off the pole certainly makes it a very, very good situation for that. Alan Jones finally qualified in 15th place with a 122.796. Been a difficult season for him.
Good job for people in the pit. Yes, there's a good point there. He can't afford to defend them, as we said earlier on today.
Nelson Piquet, of course, finishes second. There is Ayrton Senna, who is in 3rd place on the grid. So the 3 World Championship contenders are 3 people who can win it in the first 4 places, and Ayrton Senna being the one who can't win it, he's in 3rd position.
And let me just as a rider say, as you see Alain Prost McLaren being pushed away, that the McLarens always go better in the final half hour of practice on Sunday and in the race than they do in practice. And with that intriguing thought, it's back to Mike and
Thanks very much, Mike. Well, Nigel, you're being distracted by one of those quick helicopters, mate.
I'll tell you, it's turning it on its side over there. Very good too.
Congratulations. How did that feel?
It felt fairly hairy, actually, but obviously well pleased. But it's a shame that the oil went down at the end. Otherwise, I think we could have gone a little bit quicker.
The circuit in comparison to last year?
Obviously a little bit quicker, but still the same problems with dust and oil that goes down. But it should make for a very interesting race tomorrow.
All this week I've been watching you, nothing but pure determination. How did you feel on the track today?
Determined. you know, I've done all I can. I've got a pole position here for the last race, and it gives us the best opportunity to try and do well in the race, and I've just got to hope for reliability and a little bit of luck.
Right. How hard do you think race tomorrow? Come that first corner, memories of last year.
Well, if I have memories of last year on the first corner, it means I get the lead, and but then I had problems, the gearbox blew up, but I feel sure that we shouldn't have too many problems, hopefully.
Nigel, thank you for your time. We're being attacked down here. We'll let you go to your commitments. Congratulations again. We'll see you on pole tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.